Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. For that, we start to turn our focus to LSU and Texas A&M. I usually like to kind of easily wade into the weeks and maybe wait until Wednesday or Thursday, but this is just too big a game. Got to get into it and got to start right now. And I want to talk about kind of an ironic nature of this game, because as you're all well aware, A&M and Texas, not big fans of each other. That's very, very clearly rivalry number one for them. Yes, Texas and Oklahoma are huge rivals. Yes, there are other rivals in the state that they've played forever and ever, amen, in the Southwest Conference and the Big 12. But Texas and Texas A&M is a big brother, little brother relationship, and it's one that gets them boiled in the hottest. And when Texas A&M decided in 2012 to leave the Big 12 and go to the SEC, they basically severed ties with Texas unless someone told them they had to play in the postseason. And so the question is, okay, well, who then assumes that role of quote-unquote rival? And the SEC kind of looked around and said, how about LSU? So they put LSU and Texas A&M on Thanksgiving weekend. LSU did have to play on Thanksgiving night, which was the Texas A&M tradition for a couple of years, and then they stopped doing that. But essentially, kind of like last week, we were talking about the Arkansas-LSU quote-unquote forced rivalry. That's kind of what you had with Texas A&M and LSU. And there wasn't a lot of bad blood early because LSU won the first 6. And yeah, 2012 and 2013, A&M did have Johnny Manziel and Mike Evans, but LSU put them in a blender, and so it didn't really matter. But you started to get the blood flowing a little bit when John Chavis jumped ship in 2014. And we've seen some weird stuff in this rivalry, some memorable moments in this rivalry. Of course, 2015, everyone in the stadium thought that was Les Miles' last game. He's doffing his cap to the crowd pregame. They carried him off the field after you beat Texas A&M. And then Joe Alleva takes podium and is like, hey, he's going to be back. We review things after the season. The season's done. I'll tell you now, he's going to be the coach. And I remember being in the parking lot for that. I was just stunned that was what we were hearing. And then you got 2018, where you go 7 overtimes, which is one of the more memorable games of the last decade in the Southeastern Conference. And then you had the fight that followed with Jimbo's nephew, and you had Steve Cragthorpe and Kevin Falk, and there was just a lot of people throwing hands around all over the place. And blame whoever you will, it looked like there was probably more to be shoveled on the maroon and white sideline, but it was an ugly scene no matter what. In any event, 12 months later, A&M came to Baton Rouge, and Joe Burrow put on the EAUX jersey, and that was as embarrassing a performance as you'll see from a visitor in Tiger Stadium. LSU ran them off the field 6 minutes into the game. Just an absolute annihilation of Texas A&M that night in Tiger Stadium. And then you could even go as far as to go, well, in 2021, A&M was pretty good. LSU was not that good. And Max Johnson leads the drive at the very end to win the game and then transfers to A&M. So, it's just, there were a lot of memorable moments, a lot of interesting moments, some bad blood here and there. But to call it, each school's chief rival would be a little bit disingenuous. And in the course of all of these events and all these years and all these games and all these results, what we haven't really had is one where both teams had astronomically high aspirations entering this game. A&M's best year was 2020, and LSU was terrible that year. You go back to 2012, where A&M did have that great 10-2 season and went to Tuscaloosa and won. Well, they had lost their SEC opener to Florida, and they played LSU at 11 o'clock in the morning earlier in the season, and LSU won the game. A&M already had 2 losses. It wasn't like this was some sort of huge matchup. LSU in 2019 was great, but they had already clinched the West at that point, and A&M was just okay. And then you have LSU clinching the West 2 years ago. Well, that was a bad A&M team, and although A&M did win the game, it didn't really affect LSU's standing other than they had no chance to play in the college football playoff when they got to the field against Georgia. But knowing what we know now, how that game went, LSU wasn't going to beat Georgia anyway. So the point being, the teams have had good seasons over these 12 years, But at no point have they come together with this much on the line. And make no mistake, there is a ton on the line this week. It would surprise me if one of these two teams, which would have to be the winner of obviously Saturday's game, goes 8-0 in league play. It's possible. It is absolutely possible. LSU, after this, has got Bama at home, Vanderbilt at home, Oklahoma at home, and a trip to Florida. Absolutely, LSU could go 8-0. Would that surprise me a little bit if LSU were an 8-0 league team? It would surprise me a little bit. I didn't say it was impossible. I said it would surprise me. It would surprise me if A&M went 8-0. That would mean they'd beat LSU. They go to South Carolina and win. They beat Texas, even Florida. Oh, they already played Florida. They went to Florida. LSU's on the Florida side, but Florida's playing a little bit better now. It would surprise me. So you're going to get potentially lumped in with Texas, who's got one loss, and Georgia that's got one loss. And there are tiebreaker scenarios that would have to happen there. But the only team that's got a chance to go 8-0 is the one that wins. And the one that wins has a really good chance to make it to a divisionless college football SEC championship game. And LSU has the advantage of not having to play Texas and not having to play Georgia. So they would own the tiebreaker no matter who a one-loss team would be if they beat A&M on Saturday. You drop a game to Florida, they're not going to be in the SEC championship race. Drop a game to Oklahoma, not going to be in the championship race. Bama, they've already got 2 losses. So if you're LSU and you win this game, all of a sudden, you've got a really good shot at getting to Atlanta. A&M, same deal. Might all come down to that Texas weekend where you lose to Texas, you lose that tiebreaker, and then Georgia beats you in a tiebreaker and you don't make it. But even still, A&M at that point would be 10-2 with loss in opener to Notre Dame and the last week to Texas. They're probably in the college football playoff. Like, both of these teams have massive goals and aspirations in front of them, and they were not two teams when everybody met in Dallas for SEC Media Days that everyone had pegged for that. Sure, there are some College Station folks and A&M grads that were hopeful they could make the college football playoff, and certainly there were plenty around here that thought 10-2 was on the table and that LSU could make the college football playoff. But LSU and A&M were not thought of in the same breath as Georgia and Texas and probably Alabama and probably Ole Miss by a lot of people. Now, all of a sudden, it's all eyes on LSU and A&M in Kyle Field. There's going to be so much good in college football that goes on that field. LSU's classic uniforms, I like the Aggie Warhem. I think A&M's uniforms are okay. They're wearing black this week, which will make them look stupid. But it's going to be a jam-packed house, an incredible environment, 2 traditional programs, one with more success than the other, but traditional nonetheless, and a ton on the line. And while some of you may despise A&M and some of you have to, reserve that disdain for Alabama and for Florida and for Ole Miss and for Auburn, and you don't have enough bandwidth to go as far as A&M, no matter what, you're locked in for this one. And no matter how A&M fans feel about Texas today, or feel about Oklahoma, or feel about Alabama, or even to go in-state to Texas Tech and Baylor and whatever the case may be with those old Big 12 foes, this weekend, it's all eyes on LSU. And it's just a unique feel to this game because we have not had this between these two programs since they jumped into the SEC. It's going to be a wild one on Saturday. I've spent a bunch of time kind of looking at highlights of this game and breaking down statistics, and we'll get to that probably as the week progresses. We'll certainly get a guest on from the A&M side of things, and we'll talk tomorrow to J.D. Piquel about it. But this is going to be an incredible, incredible environment and an opportunity for LSU and Texas A&M coming up on Saturday. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.